Okay, boys and girls, today and all this week, we are going to be learning about creative writing. Creative writing is another narrative, which is a story made up of either true people or pretend people, but that's what a narrative is. But the creative writing is when we get to make up stories about and make up settings or places or people. You all have written stories about yourself, about a friend in your neighborhood, and different things like that. Those have been true narratives. And now we're going to do some creative writing, and you get a chance to use your imagination to make up events or stories and other characters. So you might even get to have some of the characters in your story be talking animals or aliens from outer space or something. So we're going to have fun doing that. So I just want to review all of the elements that you'll need as we begin to story write. So you remember, here's our anchor chart about story writing. Every story has to have characters. They have characters. It can be a person, an animal, or a creature. And every story has this setting. It has that tells us where it takes place or when. Maybe it's in the forest or in outer space. It tells us not just about the time, but maybe in the afternoon or in the morning. So we need characters, we need settings, and then we need to know the meat of the story. And every story has three parts to that. Do you remember? So the first one is we need characters and setting, and then the last three really is that it's a beginning, middle, end. Do you remember the song that we made up to go with that? The parts of the story is beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end. Parts of the story is beginning, middle, end, and this is how it goes. So when we begin doing that, then we have some things so in the beginning, we have some words that'll help us write, like first or one day. That's how we can start the beginning of a story. Or maybe in the middle, we could say, then this happened, or next this happened. And at the end, we can wrap our story up by saying, and lastly, or in the end. All of that can happen when we go to write our stories. So in our book, Last Stop on Market Street, if you remember, let me pull that up here. Last Stop on Market Street, we began to take a look at these partners, or take a look at these two characters, and they began to see things just a little bit differently, right? A story can be about people and places that are real or seem real, like CJ and Nana. We don't know where the story took place, but it seemed pretty reasonable that it was in a city. So even though this is a made-up story, it took place in what was probably a real place. So I'd like for you to create a story map. I'm not sure if I included it in your paper, so you can try to find that. It won't be in one of your notebooks. But on a piece of paper, you're going to have to draw something, and we're going to work on something together. So I'll tell you about that here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to take a look at Last Stop on Market Street that we read earlier. And we're going to take a look at these first four pages, or these first few pages. And it says this: CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down from his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals, watched rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged, and the doors swung open. So let's just take a look at those characters. This is a very creative story, but how do you know that this is a made-up story? Think about that. One of the things that makes a good author, a great writer, is that he makes you feel like you're included or a part of the story somehow. And that is all real life. We're going to take another look at a book called, one that we've already done. Do you remember this one? The Little Red Hen Makes a Pizza. This was one of our favorite stories, and we sure did love doing that. Do you remember? Do you think that this is an example of a creative writing? Well, it's about animals that talk, so it can't be a true story. And even though it took place in a city, if you remember, it wasn't a made-up city. It was pretty normal. But they live in a place that seems real, right? So we're going to take a look just at some of these pages here, and we're going to examine and take it apart and see how we can start to creatively write a story like we read in this book. So let's just go ahead and go to the beginning here. We'll start here on page 4. Do you remember? It says, the little red hen had eaten the last slice of her tasty loaf of bread. She sipped a cup of chickweed tea and taken her nap. Now she was hungry again, so she scratched through her cupboard and spied a can of tomato sauce. Why don't I make a lovely little pizza, she said to herself. She rummaged through her pan drawer. There were bread pans, cake pans, muffin pans, frying pans, all kinds of pans, but not one single pan was large and enough or round and flat. Cluck, she said, I need a pizza pan. She stuck her head out the window. Good morning, she called. Does anyone have a pizza pan? Do you remember the characters of this story? What did they say? Not I, said the duck. Not I, said the dog. Not I, said the cat. Very well then, I'll fetch one myself, said the little red hen. So she went to the hardware store. She bought a pizza pan, a large mixing bowl, a pizza slicer, and some other stuff. She bought a few things, didn't she? Do these things help remind you of what the story was about? Remember what the characters are, the little red hen? Let's talk about the characters. Who else were the characters in our story? Right, the duck, the dog, and the cat. Those were the other characters. What about the setting? Where does it take place? Looks like it's taken place in a city, right? The story takes place in a city. So now what I want you to do is take a look at your, I want you to take a piece of paper and write and see if you can draw this, the story map. You'll need a place for the title and these 3 places for the beginning, middle, and a square, because we're going to be drawing and writing a little bit. So you'll need to be able to handle that and do that. So if you want, you can go ahead and pause this video and create this on your piece of paper, and then come back and we'll walk through this. So let me just give you 1 second to do that, to pause. All right, so first is the title. We're going to put the title up here, and the title of this story is, what is it? The Little Red Hen. What? The Little Red Hen Makes a Pizza. That's right. So now we're going to talk about what happened at the beginning. Do you guys remember what happened at the beginning? Remember this pizza, the hen had finished her nap, didn't have anything to do. She looked in the cupboard, right? And what did she decide to do? She decided to make a pizza. She wanted to make a pizza. I love pizza, don't you? So I'm just going to color this in. Maybe we'll add some pepperoni. And now for this, I might just draw I'm going to try to draw A little red hen. Not bad, huh? Right? And this hen has on for sure an apron. Maybe I'll give her a hat. A chef's hat. Maybe a couple eyes. Good idea. You know I can't draw very well. So you can just make this along with me as you're doing it, or you can do it later. So the little red hen. Now when we make this, we're just really taking notes. So I'm gonna write here, what happened at the beginning was that the little red hen wants to do what? Wants to make a pizza. So we have that information, and we're just going to take some other notes. Tell me about the setting. Where does she live? And I'll just write that. Lives in a city. So we're just taking notes. They don't have to be exact sentences. But that's about what happened at the beginning of the story. Now we're going to take a look at the middle part of this story, just to get you guys thinking about how you need to be doing your own story when it comes time. Do you remember what she did? She needed, if you remember the story, she needed a whole bunch of ingredients. She needed a pan, she needed cheese, she had the sauce, she needed the yeast to make the dough, she needed all kinds of ingredients. And she asked her friends for help. Do you remember who her friends were? We have a dog, right? That's not bad. That's not a bad dog. There you go. There's our dog. And who else wanted to? Who else wouldn't help? Do you remember? This was the duck. Right? Are you guys drawing pictures with me? Quack, quack. And who was the last character? That was the kitty cat, right? So those were the three people that she needed the ingredients with. I don't know if you can see that duck very well. Here we go, a little bit more. So she needed the ingredients. So let's just write that. The little red hen needs ingredients for what? To make the pizza. And the other animals, I'm just taking notes, other animals will not help, right? The other animals will not help. Then what happens at the end? Do you remember what happens at the end? She ends up asking him, no one would help her, not I, they all said, but in the end, she ended up sharing her pizza with her friends. So she gave them all a slice. How many friends were there? There you go. Now I have to draw this dog again. Let's give this dog this slice. And the duck. Quack, quack. I'll write that, fix that later. Give this duck. And then the cat. We learned that that's a funny looking cat, isn't it? So in the end, Little Red Hen shares that, what does she share? Little Red Hen shares pizza. And who eats it? The animals. And what else did the animals do? Do you remember? They were very grateful for the pizza, even though they didn't help her make it. So they end up cleaning up, right? And so there we have our story. I'm going to fix some of these faces here. Sorry about that. Cute little doggy and their pizza. So what I want you to do is make your story map similar to this. You can pause it and take the information down, but I want you to write it and get used to figuring out the beginning, the middle, and the end. I've also included in your assignments on your HMCO website this book again, Little Red Hen Makes a Pizza, and you can read that. Click on the read aloud if you want, but you'll enjoy that story again. So take your notes, fill this out, and we'll see you next time for creative writing. That's awkward, isn't it? I'm out of breath too.
Okay. I couldn't pause it because